We're about to begin the hearing, but before we begin, we will show a video, and then we'll officially convene after that. Thank you.
Currently, I have about $76,000 of debt.
I've paid off some over the past couple of years. And here I've taken out, give or take, like maybe $22,000.
I'm basically doing this out of pocket, and I know many people who are in the same boat, and it's a sinking ship at this point.
Actually meet us halfway, and I don't know, so the burden doesn't exactly fall on the students.
Help us make education affordable. Help us unburden students from large amounts of debt so that they can get their education as quickly as possible, get out into the workforce, and get out into our communities and be contributing citizens.
My sister, her battling with Sallie Mae debt collectors for her school loans is ridiculous, and my father fighting to pay that and pay my way through school, and about to start paying my sister, my little sister's about to graduate away from school. It's pretty hard on us.
As a returning student, the financial aid is a little bit different. Like if you have your degree, you can't get the same financial aid, which isn't fair. You know, like there's a lot of people in my situation who've lost their jobs. You know, you're living on just a tiny bit of money. You have to do what you can do, and I think they should look at that and change that. In today's world, it's just not the same as it was in the past. So.
My family wasn't able to provide support. I was able to do it. I'm not sure what my opportunity would be in today's dollars and today's age. You know, would I have the same opportunity?
I've been paying off my debt for quite some time, actually.
Okay.
And I would say before, if I hadn't paid anything off, it would be well over $100,000.
My father's told me that he will go broke paying for school so we can get our education, and I feel like he shouldn't have to do that, because if education is such an important thing to America, why not give him as much support as I know you guys can do?
This cause is important enough for them to have taken the whole day off to come here and try to convince legislators that it's worth paying for public higher education.
My name is Tom Sanacandro, and I represent the towns of Framingham and Ashland.
My name is Nicole.
My name's Michael.
I'm here with Elizabeth.
I'm Katie. Sarah Strohacker.
My name is David.
The story that you tell me doesn't end with me. It's just the start of the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm Paul Mark. I'm the state representative for Greenfield and 15 other communities here in Franklin and Berkshire County, and I'm the House Chair of the Subcommittee on Student Loans and Debt. We're here today in Greenfield for the third of 7 statewide regional hearings that we're going to be holding. Our charge as a subcommittee is to try to figure out what we can do as a state, at the state level, to try to ease the debt load and the student loan load that so many students throughout our Commonwealth are facing right now, including myself. As a graduate of a community college and of UMass Amherst, my wife and I were paying over $750 a month in student loans, so we understand how big of a problem this is. Today, my co-chair, Senator Donahue, she is here, but I think she's on a conference call right now in the parking lot, but she'll be in momentarily. We're also joined by Representative Aaron Vega of Holyoke and Representative Denise Provost of Somerville. Our first speaker is going to be President Bob Pura, President of Greenfield Community College. Mr. President.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Joint Committee, students, colleagues, and guests, good afternoon. I would like to extend my thanks to House Chairman Sanacandro and Senate Chairman Moore of the Joint Committee on Higher Education for their efforts in creating the Subcommittee on Student Loans and Debt. My name is Bob Pura, as you just heard, and I have the great privilege of being president here at Greenfield Community College. I'm here to welcome you all on behalf of our college's 5,500 credit and non-credit students, our 385 full and part-time faculty and our staff, and our boards of trustee and foundation. Lives change for the better every day here at Greenfield Community Colleges. community college families then grow stronger, and so too our community. As the sole point of access to higher education here in Franklin County, the most rural and the poorest per capita in the Commonwealth, we take our responsibility to heart. 50% of our students come to GCC for the first 2 years of their quest for the baccalaureate degree, and 50% seek one of our professional career programs. Students come for workforce training, while still too many look to us to retool, renew, and restart their careers after a loss of a job. All are looking for family, sustainable jobs and a better life for themselves and the next generation. Since our first days as a college in 1962, over 200,000 students have walked through GCC's doors. Most were the first in their family to attend college. 60% are women, 27 years of age on average, and are still graduating at a rate that has been at or near the top of the state for as long as those performance metrics have been kept. They have been transferring to colleges and universities throughout those years to places such as UMass, Mount Holyoke, Smith, Westfield, MCLA, RISD, MassArt, or work at the jobs of their choice. 45% of GCC's graduates over the past 5 years have transferred, and 70% of those who graduated from one of our career programs are employed or continuing their education within a year of graduation. GCC graduates have become nurses, doctors, bankers, and entrepreneurs. They are, in fact, the very infrastructure of our community. Thousands of lives really have changed for the better. Countless generations of families have grown stronger, and so too our community. In my 35 years of experience in the Massachusetts community college system, I'm not aware of any college that works any harder to meet the needs of the community that it serves. Nor am I aware of any community that supports its college more than our community supports this college. GCC offers open access to high-quality, affordable academic programs, including associate and certificate programs. We are committed to excellence in teaching and learning and provide the preparation to transfer for career preparation or entry into high-demand occupational fields. Rooted in our community, GCC serves as a community leader. We help to identify opportunities and solutions to community problems, contributing to the region's intellectual, cultural, and economic development. We collaborate with elementary and secondary education, working to ensure a smooth transition from secondary to post-secondary. Through partnerships with baccalaureate institutions, we help to promote an efficient system of public higher education in our community, in our region, and throughout the state. In addition, we assume primary responsibility for offering developmental education, courses, programs, and services for individuals who seek to develop the skills needed to enter the workforce or pursue college-level study. Far too many enter higher education underprepared and at risk. As you know, GCC, like all community colleges, have a special responsibility for the development of an educated and sustainable workforce. Through partnerships with business and industry, we provide job training, retraining, certification, and skills improvement. This past Friday, we helped to celebrate our collaboration with the Regional Employment Board, the local tech high school, and the local manufacturing base. We were able to cut the ribbon on a brand new state-of-the-art advanced manufacturing lab at that tech school. Steve Capshaw, a local manufacturer, led a small but merry band of women and men to make that possible. The opportunity that program will provide will create family-sustainable jobs for years to come. I would like to take the moment to, for the record, appreciate Mr. Capshaw and our own Representative Mark for your hard work and for your vision. So, Mr. Representative, thank you. Thomas Jefferson once wrote that if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. He added that when the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. With those words, Jefferson places education as the foundation of democracy. He felt so strongly about the importance of education to the sustainability of democracy that in his State of the Union address in 1806, he said, and I quote, "Education is here placed among the articles of public care. About 35 years later, then Massachusetts Secretary of Education Horace Mann wrote, "According to the European theory, men are divided into classes, some to toil and earn, others to seize and enjoy. According to Massachusetts theory," he says, "all are to have an equal chance for earning and equal security in the enjoyment of what they earn. It is in the highest duty of the state." Later in that same report, he writes, my favorite of all the Horace Mann lines, "Education then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is a great equalizer of the conditions of men, the balance wheel of the social machinery." Those are the same ideals, values, and principles that this college was committed to when it opened its doors just over 50 years ago. From Katrina to Sandy, nature has taken its toll on our cities and towns in this part of the valley and the people who live in those towns. Many in this room and in our community know firsthand the fears and the frustrations of roads and bridges closed by Tropical Storm Irene. Far too many know the same or similar fears and frustrations as the doors to opportunity are closing every day. It is as if a banner with the words "Do not enter" is placed across the entry at Ellis Island. Today, socioeconomic status is the best predictor of success in education for the first time in our nation's history. A current snapshot of the economic reality of our students speak to those fears and those frustrations and the barriers that they face every day. I have a handout for each of you that will have all of the data, and I won't go through all of it, but I'll just want to highlight a few for you. In terms of cost, the student will pay $4,800 here at GCC for tuition and fees for a full-time load, 24 credits for the year. However, as we all know, that cost is just the tuition and fees, does not include things like books, supplies, room and board, transportation, personal expenses. If you look at that data, we have $13,410 for a number for those folks who are living at home, and that balloons up to just under $18,000 for those who are on their own. I do want to say that in terms of books and transportation, the average right now is about $1,260 for books and $1,700 for transportation. Welcome, Senator. With regard to the cost of books, I won't go into great detail now. I'm sure you will hear testimony from others about that. But we simply must find a better solution. While I am somewhat optimistic about the potential of online rentals, the costs and the additions and the buyback scenario that goes round and round and round, escalating to higher costs every year, is not a good one. Those costs do not include childcare, nor do they include insurance. The lack of a child care center on this campus is immeasurable in terms of real impact. GCC is the only community college in the state without a center. 19% of our students spend more than 30 hours a week providing care for someone in their household. And as insurance costs continue to climb, for example, this year it was $1,600 for the full year, far too many of our students are forced to reduce credit hours below full-time status, increasing the time to complete the degree and reducing the health care coverage. We can do better. In terms of aid, last year the Financial Aid Office provided aid to 1,657 students. 53% of enrolled credit students receive financial aid. 76% of those students who receive aid receive financial aid from the federal level, 68% from the state level, and 22% that are college funded. With regard to work and study, research is very clear. 20 hours or less and a full-time academic load provide many benefits for our students. Working more than 20 hours, however, working more than that 20 hours, creates negative outcomes from lower GPA to reducing course load to taking longer to eventually, for some, dropping out completely. 47% of our students currently work more than 20 hours a week to make ends meet. Work study is the perfect response to that need. Through Work Study Aid, 384 students participated from federal work study, allowing them to do that work on this campus. Their GPA goes up, their ability to decrease work outside goes down, their potential for success increases. In terms of debt, the average loan debt of our graduates is just under $3,000. However, the average loan debt, interestingly enough, for all students is just over $7,500. Many of our faculty, when they knew that you were coming and are thrilled that you did so, sent me emails saying, please let them know that we continue to pay off our own loan debt. In terms of Pell, we love Mr. Pell. We love what he's accomplished and what he's been able to do over time. His idea and the support that he's gotten since the idea was created provides benefits for many students. In 2010, 34% of our students were awarded Pell Grants, and then this past year, 42%. So it went from 34 to 42% just in those 3 years. Approximately 1/3 of Pell recipients also have to rely on student loans to meet their costs. And in terms of state aid, the average mass aid award amounts are decreasing. In 2010, GCC students were awarded $736, and in 2013, that average award dropped to $622. When asked about major sources of paying tuition, GCC students in 2011 indicated a greater reliance on grants, scholarships, loans, and public assistance than they did in the year 2007. Over 50% of our students indicate that they are likely or very likely to withdraw from classes or this college because of lack of finances. 40% indicate they are likely or very likely to withdraw from classes or this college because of working. The economic pressures are squeezing students into making decisions that's not in their own long-term best interest. One last data point. You, more than most, already know that there is a direct and clear correlation between state allocation and student costs. This current budget cycle is our most recent and best example. Your support for higher education in FY14 has resulted in our ability to freeze all student costs. The most effective way of keeping the doors to higher education open and affordable to all is to allocate those needed resources. Our responsibility, in turn, is to ensure that we are accountable and efficient in the use of those funds and to hold the public trust. At a time of a decreasing middle class, at a time of increasing isolation and decreasing hope, at a time when our nation does not seem to act on its stated egalitarian values, our college and the public higher education system of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts have always and will always strive for something better. Democracy does not flourish in a separate and unequal society. It is the outcome of our collective commitment to provide a good education for all. GCC holds out that lantern and provides that hope for our students and for this community. The pathway to social and economic mobility in our community does pass through the doors of GCC. There are many who talk the talk right now about achieving the American dream. Few, however, walk that walk to the extent that our families, our students, their families, our faculty and staff, and this community do together. Beginning in 1980 and deepened during the past decade, the infrastructure of our United States has unfortunately eroded to a point that educator Jonathan Kozol wrote, "Savage inequalities were the inevitable outcome." Our challenge now, collectively, even in this slow-to-recover economy, is to work together to maintain the commitment of this current budget cycle, so as to turn the past state and federal transgressions of inequity into a future of equal opportunity. As President Obama has said, public education is no longer just a pathway to opportunity, it is a prerequisite. In my closing, I want to say that I remember watching on TV as governor of Alabama stood in the doorway of that state's public university denying access to African Americans eager to work hard for a better life for themselves and their families. Today, not unlike Governor Wallace did over 4 decades ago, stands a faceless economic system blocking the doorways of our nation's colleges and universities to all who aspire for a better life. Assuring affordable access to a quality education lives up to the principles and ideals of Jefferson and Mann and makes good on the dreams of a nation. As you all might not know, but I know our representative does, I am not a historian, an economist, nor a scholar of the tenets of democracy, nor am I an expert in the pedagogical arts and sciences. I am simply the son of an immigrant, the first to attend college in my family, and a poster child for community colleges and the American dream. If not for you and the work of our public colleges, that dream and those possibilities will die with my generation. We must never let that happen here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Members of the Great and General Court, we so appreciate your work on this most significant committee. I do welcome you all to GCC and wish for you Godspeed in your deliberations. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. There you go. You're actually the first applause out of 3 hearings. We're joined now by Senator Eileen Donoghue, my co-chair from the city of Lowell. Thank you, first of all, for being an excellent host, for hosting us here today. It's such a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to show off this still new, beautiful facility to our counterparts from all over the state. So we really appreciate you hosting us today. And if there was a community college that I could hold up as a model for the rest of the state, it would be this one.
Well, thank you.
GCC is involved in every aspect of the community. It is an unbelievable place. It's been an honor for me to be able to partner with you and be here so often, but that says a lot about the engagement that you and your faculty and the students here have, and we really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate the words, but we see it in the action that you take all the time.
Thank you. One issue that keeps coming up at community colleges, the community college presidents have brought up at these hearings, has been setting up partnerships with private colleges. And I noticed, I've known before, but I noticed the banner, the partnership GCC and Elms College. What is the most difficult part of setting up a partnership like that? Is it difficult? And if so, what can we do to help encourage that kind of thing?
Well, first, let's talk about the why we do that. For many of our students who aspire to that next level, we wish for them to go off to those places I cited. We want them to go down to UMass or Smith. We have the largest transfer to Smith of any community college in the country, and most of our students that do transfer off to UMass. But RISD, Mass Art, we love it when our students go off to those places. Too many of our students, however, are place-bound because of family commitment, economic restraints. Folks can't leave the community, but aspire for the same degree. So bringing the degree here to the community has been the work about lifting the aspirations met by the possibilities here on our campus. Over time, we've tried those at different points in time, and usually what happens in a typical 2+2 on campus is there's a front end of a lot of students who are interested and excited. They get involved, and then after a year or so, the numbers drop. Part of it is that the model of creating those kinds of partnerships have to be cognizant of the support structure that's needed to make them run well. And so these new partnerships that we have now, the one that you saw, the sign coming in, is based around having staff on campus, having our faculty engaged so that they could be bringing those students into courses that they would be teaching for that 4-year institution. And it's also built for sustainability. That is, we don't want to see a year or two of a good program and then see it dwindle away and then those schools have to go off. So for us, one of the challenges is the economy of scale. We, as a small school, and you know better than most the challenges of small rural environments. The economy of scale is our great asset, small classes, good community building, great relationship opportunities. but the challenge is making the numbers work all the time. And so we want our students to have opportunity to do the same, for the same cost that a student is going to Brockton or is going to Boston or is going to a college in Haverhill. We want those same opportunities here. Working with those institutions that can commit to that end, bringing the degree here, making sure that there's community and making sure there's an administrative infrastructure allows for that to be a sustainable model. We have a couple of conversations going on with other colleges or universities at this moment in time. We think that if we were to create a center for the baccalaureate attainment and have a few different programs in a few different colleges and can build a core infrastructure, it would lend itself well to the sustainability and won't be dependent on a small cohort of students. So there has to be, Mr. Representative, there has to be an administrative oversight, an infrastructure, a sense of community that the students and the faculty, that's not just an adjunct faculty who feels disconnected from the college. If a student graduates from GCC and is a student in Elms or one of the other programs that we have, but don't feel they belong to either because they're just in a room one night, we think that's a setup for failure. Whereas if there's a part of something and build that infrastructure and community, we think it has the potential to last.
Thank you.
And that they're making it affordable to our students. That's the other key of that model is they need to help make that transition and open those doors in the same way that this committee is discussing that. Affordable access is key.
Thank you. Questions?
Just a quick question. There we go.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question. You mentioned it as I was coming in, and it had to do with books, and we heard about that earlier today. Can you speak to that just briefly, and what is there, is there anything we can do to address that? I know it seems to be a concern that we're hearing about.
Yeah, so the concern is that every single year, regardless of the economy, regardless of what's going on in our students' lives, regardless of regional impact, book costs go up. And they change. So book company says to a faculty member, oh, we're changing this perspective on this particular issue, so you have to get the new edition. And so a faculty member who wants to stay current, doesn't want their student to be left behind in terms of information, changes, goes up to the next edition. They order it, the student picks it up, they pay too much for it because everybody has taken their piece, whether it's the production costs, the distribution costs, and they pay too much. And then when they go to sell it back, they don't get value for that. It's not any different here than it is at Miami-Dade or the Dallas Community College or out in California. That is the norm around the country. There is some promise in the online opportunity for a student to rent online. Unfortunately, I still have every book I've ever had in all my classes, and they're sitting in boxes that I never look at. But most of our students sell them back because they have to have that money. If the costs are reduced significantly and are rented online, that next cycle won't be as challenging as it is. I would imagine, we used to run our own bookstore, I would imagine that the bigger companies have the same issue, which is there is not much value for that return to the warehouse. And so they're not giving our students value for the dollars that they've invested in that book. So the online shows some potential. The other one is I do believe economies of scale. If there was, and I know every college wants to be in control of its own bookstore issues, but there has to be some way to the economies of scale that can work for us collectively as a system. That if everybody's using the 101 book, and not everybody does, but let's say every 10 of the 15 community colleges are using the 101, there should be a way to order that in such scale that it reduces the cost to our students.
And forgive me, this may go more to the industry, but are you seeing any advancement towards digital books in terms of textbooks? Is that
yeah, very much so.
Does that help in terms of the cost, or?
It has the potential to,
Yeah.
but we haven't seen huge changes yet. The rental and the online stuff, more and more of our students search anywhere in the world, wherever they can get that 101 book or whatever the book is, online for a cheaper, for less dollars than what a particular bookstore might order. I also want to add that nursing books, part of the debt load for those nurses when they start working in the hospitals to pay off just the book. I mean, it's just astronomical how much they have to pay. So the tuition and fees is a big part of your conversation, but books, insurance costs, huge as well. And the books, I think, I got to believe we can do better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you all.
Johannes Ratz?
That was pretty good, actually. Hi, my name is Johannes Ratz. I'm from the Center for Education Policy and Advocacy at UMass Amherst. Thank you to the chairs and to this subcommittee, GCC, for hosting. I really appreciate it. I'm the Access and Affordability Core Team Leader at SEPA, which is a student-run advocacy and policy organization at UMass Amherst. And first off, I would just start with what my vision is, which a lot of people probably consider a radical idea of free public higher education for all, completely accessible. So of course, that's many, many steps from where we are currently, but I see that there are steps to get there. Unfortunately, with the student loan issue, we have a huge national crisis. About a year ago, we went over the $1 trillion threshold for student loans nationwide, which is more than credit card debt or car debt. And this summer, we had the political drama in the federal level about the lending rate for students, which was briefly doubled to 6.8%, and then retroactively went back to 3.86% for the subsidized direct loans from the federal government. But as our Senator Warren has pointed out, at the federal level, it's pretty outrageous that if inflation in the past 12 months ending now is 1.5% and banks can lend at an even lower rate, why are we profiting off of students? At the federal level, the Congressional Budget Office has estimated that this year the United States government will profit $51 billion off of student loans. I find this to be outrageous, why we are profiting off of students in this way. And a lot of this direct lending is executed through fully privatized lobbying corporations such as Sallie Mae, which have regularly been indicted with predatory lending practices. In their last fiscal quarter ending this past summer, they netted a profit of more than $500 billion. Simply put, the federal loan system is not working for students anywhere. And I suggest that we get Massachusetts out of the business of exploiting students for their loans, for trying to get a degree and contribute to their economies in their states and nationwide. The Massachusetts No Interest Loan, or NIL, is a loan that is eligible for low-income students here in Massachusetts. But I would suggest let's expand this program to make it available to all students at eligible universities and colleges at a rate that's either at inflation or, if not, zero. With that said, however, loans are really a Band-Aid solution for an insidious process of shifting costs to students and away from the state and allowing costs to rise. Student debt problem is really a problem about funding. At UMass Amherst, for the whole UMass system, funding is down $366 million since 2001, adjusted for inflation. And Massachusetts appropriations for higher education as a percentage of our state economy is 48th nationwide. 50/50 was a step in the right direction after many years of cuts, especially after the financial crisis, but it is really inadequate. It's part of my vision that I share with a lot of students from my university and around the Commonwealth. It's only half of the way there. So I suggest increasing Mass Grant funding. Mass Grants used to cover 80% of tuition and fees at eligible colleges and now only cover about 20%. Also, as it was suggested to you this morning by another speaker, that I definitely support the pay it forward system of making higher education, public higher education free and creating reasonable repayment plans after graduation. I also support fully state-funded community college and 2 years at any public institution. So, of course, everybody's in favor of all of these things generally, but always the question is, okay, where does the money come from? Really, the answer is, of course, taxes, and nobody really wants to hear that most of the time, but that's the truth. And from my personal perspective, that is a decision that the State House is going to have to make, because everybody is in sort of support of these things, but the money has to come from somewhere, and it can't come off of the backs of other important, really vital programs that affect public higher education directly, like early childhood development, which really was not helped in this past fiscal year. So this is my vision. I thank you for being able to share with you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have Carlos Pena.
My name is Carlos Pena. I'm a student, I was a former student at GCC and then transferred over to UMass. I'm testifying my story as to how I got here and where I am right now in higher education in Massachusetts. It's very difficult to pursue a higher education in Massachusetts if you don't have the economical means to pursue a higher education. As far as, a state school is UMass, which is pretty expensive. I started here because I felt that if I started here, I would get a discount at UMass and continue my education and graduate. Unfortunately, because of financial aid and not being able to have the proper people to tell me exactly how to go about getting the right financial aid or being able to get the means to pursue my education. I wasn't able to finish, and I'm still trying to finish. I just had a kind of a difficult time trying to get my loans consolidated, and nobody really knows how to consolidate your loans or what loans you can consolidate, and it's been difficult talking to the financial aid office and finding somebody that can gear me in the right direction. And I've lost a year and a half now trying to finish my last 12 credits, consolidating my loans or finding somebody to help me consolidate my loans. I guess one of my loans was left out of my consolidation, and I didn't know how that happened. But I'm pretty sure that happens to a lot of people in my position. Now I'm trying to work full time here to pay that loan off that I need to pay off in order to get my Title IX back. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot, I'm not the only one, there's a lot of people out there in the world that are looking, or just here in the United States, that are looking for a way to help them better understand how financially they can graduate and get this degree in order to get a better job and, start a family and, things of that nature. I don't know if my story fits into what you guys are doing here, or your purpose here today, but I'm glad that you guys are here, and I'm glad that GCC was able to host this event. Unfortunately, I'm not here I only have about 5 minutes, it's my break time, so I'm gonna cut it short. I hope you can address my situation and try to help other people, and whoever sees this video or is able to understand the situation that I'm in, and maybe they're in the same situation, and you could give them a little bit of light on that and how we can, improve this.
No, thank you very much. And your story is exactly what we want to hear, because the more people that tell that same story, the more people are going to be able to pay attention. And that's why we wanted to go all over the state to make sure everybody gets a chance to come in on their break instead of having to travel all the way down to the State House. So thank you so much. And any questions from the committee?
I just want to echo, thank you for coming in. One of the things that you speak to that we are wrestling with is the financial literacy piece, so that while you're going through the process early on, are you getting the kind of guidance so you understand what kind of loans you have? And then as you proceed through the system, are you getting the advice and counsel, and what can we do to make sure you're getting the necessary input and guidance to make those decisions that are impacting your life?
Yes.
So we appreciate hearing
Thank
from
you so much for having me.
And we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I will need it.
Thank you.
You guys
very
have a great
much.
day.
Thanks, you too. Next, we have Hunter Parent Wetmore.
Good afternoon, representatives. My name is, like you said, Hunter Parent Wetmore. I'm currently a public health major at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I am previously a graduate of Bristol Community College down in, the Fall River, Attleboro area. So for me, I went to community college because when I applied to UMass for the first time, I didn't get any financial aid whatsoever. I come from a solidly middle-class background. My mom's a nurse. So it was very surprising to me, but at that point I was like, well, I don't want to take out, because if it being, $25,000 a year, that would have been, $100,000 in debt from a state university. So I decided to go to community college, went to community college for 2 years, graduated. My parents were able to foot the bill for that, very luckily for me. And then when I went to UMass, I got the mass transfer, which waives your tuition, does not waive fees, by the way. And I was able to transfer in all my credits, everything like that. So I entered as a junior, and I don't have, a lot left to go. That being said, I'm still going to end up graduating with, I believe it's looking now around $25,000 to $30,000 in debt at least. And I'm, second year here, I was a resident assistant, so your room and board are off. All the things you could do to reduce my personal load, I took. The problem now, so I'm graduating with $25,000, $30,000, which is above the national average for student loan debt. And the problem with my loans is we got them through what is called the PLUS loan program, specifically the Parent Plus loans, which have the lovely benefit of having set interest rates, which if you don't have great credit, which a lot of middle-class families don't have great credit, especially if you have family members who've been out of work, disabilities of any sort. So these Parent Plus loans have lower interest rates, more like next to your regular federal loans. That being said, they go straight to your parents. They do not go to you. They can never be discharged to the student, so my parents will always have to be paying these loans. It affects their credit score. And, if I can't pay off these loans, that they're stuck with all of that. So, and the alternative to this was to go through specifically private lenders like Sallie Mae, Nellie Mae, and get loans which are often very high interest rates or variable rate interest rates, which can end up, looking good now and then being terrifying years on. So, for me, it's kind of a dilemma, because when I go from here, I'm a public health major right now. I'm looking to go into nursing fields, which is a growing field. I really don't know how I'm going to pay off student loans if I can't get a job directly. I'm looking into graduate school. If I don't get into graduate school, I fall into a year gap before applying again. During that year gap, I extend past how long my loan can be deferred, and I'm going to be hit with $400 to $500 monthly, paying for loan bills. So that's incredibly difficult for me to, perceive paying off at this point, and, continue to pay the hundreds of dollars and they sometimes go into thousands of dollars for applying to graduate school and getting into graduate school. So it's a very difficult dilemma that if I wanted a lot of the things we say, take a year off, go work, the working is, save money. It's very difficult to save money when you're footing $500, monthly loan bills. So there's a lot of different ways about dealing with this. I understand this is a very difficult situation. I worked with both Bristol Community College and University and UMass Amherst on Advocacy Day, going to the State House, and we fought for the increase to 50-50 funding. And it's great to see that my tuition and fees aren't going up this year. That being said, they're pretty high already. And I've heard of proposals to integrate the 2-year program as like kind of an end to high school, as in kind of the, similar to the UK system, where this is kind of a mandatory step after you go to high school if you want to continue to get your 4-year degree, kind of integrating those systems, making 2-year education free or lower costs so that when you do apply to 4-year institutions, at that point, you only have to go for 2 years. So there's a lot of different proposals on the tables. One of the interesting ones is income-based repayment, which is depending on what you make later on in life. You can pay it back at that set rate. Pay it forward, where you pay into other students' bills and back into the university as kind of a cut off of your salary when you're working. There's a lot of different alternatives here, but for me, almost anything is better than to perceive trying to save money when I have loan payments that high, and to see trying to have a future in Massachusetts, a future in the area, when going to a community college, going to a state university is still saddling me with $500 a month at least in bills. So that's my story, and that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you very much. Next up, we'll have Bailey Blaisdell.
I'm Bailey Blaisdell, as you said, and I go to UMass. I'm in comparative literature and women's studies, and this is my 4th year in UMass. And for almost all of my college career, I've been working full-time and also being full-time in school, which is, like, to give an estimate, probably like 70, 60 hours a week that I'm, like, committed all the time. And I'm the 4th child of a single-parent family, which sounds like I would be eligible for a lot of student aid, but I am not. And I fall just outside of the income bracket. And I also don't come from a family that has good credit, so I am not eligible for Parent Plus loans. I have done Stratford loans, which is the alternative. It's like I'm sure you know, but it's what you are offered without, or if you are refused for Parent Plus loans. So most of the loans that I'm taking out are unsubsidized and scary loans, and I'm about $60,000 in debt, I think, when I'm out of school. And so that's really high and really daunting. And I considered not going to college immediately and to save money, but the amount that you can get, the highest paying job I could get without going to school was about $10 an hour, which is what it requires to live. Like, in terms of paying rent, I have a car that has a payment, and paying all of my bills, $10 an hour is not enough to save money at all. It's enough to get by. And so that, like, essentially would mean that I'm completely out of higher education, which is not only a class system, but more of a caste system if you are completely ineligible forever. And there are a lot of people who have it a lot worse than me. I'm a relatively privileged person, and there are people with children, there are people who have no support at all, who can't do any of what I'm doing. So I guess I could have phrased that more eloquently, but the point is that there's a really inherent problem with higher education costing money at all, and the amount that it's costing is really, really ruining my ability to continue. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you very much. It's a compelling story, and it's a story I lived as well, because I worked full-time throughout my college career, and it wasn't easy, and I lived out in the Berkshires, so getting anywhere wasn't easy either. Right. So it's a very, very real problem, and we appreciate that you are in here sharing it with us. Any questions from anybody on the committee?
I was just going to say that if you can come out with a line like, it's not just a class system, but a caste system, you're plenty eloquent.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the students who have come here to testify today, to let you know it is really important. I want to commend you and everybody for what you've done to work full-time, to stay in school is incredible. And I know looking at the debt is not, something that you take lightly at all. And that's what we hope to try and deal with. But individually, I want to commend you for what you've been able to accomplish. I went to UMass Amherst as well, so I appreciate all the UMass Amherst people who are here, of course. And in my day, 100 years ago, you could actually work your way through school, and between loans, loans and grants and working, you come out with debt, but it was manageable, and that's the problem today, and that's something that we fully understand. But you have a lot to offer, all of you, so thank you for being here, and thanks for sharing.
Representative?
Okay. I just want to pick up on what was said too. I want to thank all the students especially, and please pass the word to your friends that we're taking letters that on this issue too, because I know that not everyone can be here. And I think it's important for you guys to know that you have friends at the State House, because as the chairman mentioned at the very beginning, he and his wife are paying their student loans. I went to Holyoke Community College, then the State School in New Hampshire. I mentioned that at the hearing at HCC, one of the best days was when I paid off my student loan. So we're not that far from the issue, and we want you to know that this is something that we are very concerned about. When we talk about economic development, when we talk about building our communities, having our students riddled with debt is not a way to move forward. So. Please, thank you for making time to come out. I understand busy schedules, but please encourage your friends to, continue to talk to us and, send us, whether it's letters or emails or whatnot. So please keep this going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we will have Manuel Prutato.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, GCC. I want to say that it is great our governor has put this panel together. It's great to see that our advocacy, the State House is working, because now we have the state reps coming to talk to the students. So thank you, Governor Patrick, for doing this. My story is kind of short. I'm what we call a non-traditional student. I was a single parent with a daughter who was just graduating from high school, and she went to better things now. But my story was I couldn't afford college, because when I was young, I didn't do the right things, and I had a small loan, which I never paid. So when I decided to go back to school, that loan turned out to be almost something that I couldn't afford. So all my time at Holyoke Community College, which is where I graduated from, I paid off pocket, and I made loan, and I had to borrow money and more money, especially after we got all these C cuts and everything. I mean, the fees kept going up. It took me almost 3 years to pay for my education, and it was tough at the beginning. But like as Aaron said, Vega said, it is. HCC gave me more than I can be thankful for. And for us, non-traditional students, being able to go to school and learn what was going on at that time with everything, with the financial crisis and with everything that was affecting students, is what made me really get into the Student Senate at Holyoke Community College. And I'm so glad that I got into Holyoke Community College, because I became a member of FINAM, and I've been a member of FINAM for almost 5 years now. And I have seen many things and going to the State House, and it is hard. It is hard for students who graduate and then they have a life that they think they have made the American way, but they're not, because they graduate with all this debt, and then they had to take the first job, and then they want the house, they want the family, and they gotta end up working at McDonald's or Burger King. So, it is hard. And I believe that, continue my story, now I'm a third year UMass student at Amherst. I'm a sociology major, and I'm gonna keep having these loans, and I'm gonna, I wish that it wasn't so, but I'm gonna have to be having at least more than $20,000-$30,000 in debt that it's gonna have to get paid. So my reason being here is to please to make you understand that as the students, we want the chance that everybody has. And I believe that Senator Warren, she came with a great proposal, and I believe that we don't really have to just do a state. We need to go like completely federal and make people understand that if they have the chances, you know, why can't everybody else have a chance? Everybody has a chance for education. And I think this, you know, the 50-50 and the 2-year, you know, because society says so that at the high school you can get a job, but that's not so. I mean, you need more than high school now. You need at least 2 years of associates to at least get something to what is known as the American life, you know, the American dream. So I just want to say it's a privilege, you know, for me to be here and to, you know, to tell my story. And I just want to close with something that when I was at HEC, we did many things, many things. I mean, we were the homeless. We tried to work many things with, as a matter of fact, we work with the food department. We asked for Sodexo to come in, so now the students can have a better food for them and better, you know, better stability, more health for them, because the more healthy you are, the better to study. So these are the kind of people that I ask you to endorse. People like me, who I thought I never had a chance, but I'm so glad that I went back to school. And now I'm not only a student at UMass, I'm a FINA member, but also a member of the Peace and Justice Committee in Northampton and the Human Rights. And also an advocate for immigration movement, which I was trying to apply for the DREAM Act. It's something that I still gonna be working for. And like my professor at Howard Community College, Penelope Herring, said, you know, everybody has, you know, you look in people's eyes and everybody has a story. And I believe the story for everybody is that we all deserve an education.
Thank you very much for coming up here and talking. And you mentioned an important point, and we're very lucky we have a strong partner in the federal government, especially with Senator Elizabeth Warren. She's been a great partner with this committee, and Congressman McGovern here in Greenfield and down in Amherst, and our entire congressional delegation here from Massachusetts. Anybody have any questions or anything? No?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we'll have Rosemary Freeland.
Thank you so much for spending time inside this beautiful room instead of being outside in that beautiful fall weather. I appreciate it. My name is Rosemary Freeland. I currently coordinate our GCC Women's Resource Center here. My primary responsibilities include assisting incoming and currently enrolled returning adult women students with the navigation and acquisition of various college, community, state, and federal resources that may supplement and enhance their traditional financial aid if they qualify, or help them access alternative funding if they do not qualify for financial aid. For example, students who are parents of infants, toddlers, preschoolers, or elementary school children, as President Pura noted, because we don't have an on-campus childcare center at this time, the majority of the students I work with directly are not able to afford the cost of full-time or even part-time care. A full-time child care slot subsidized by the State Department of Early Education and Care would be $3,600 for a 15-week semester, and that is not possible for a family to afford. I wanted to say that as some students and staff faculty have noted their own loan debt, I too am paying $279 monthly to Sallie Mae. That's a combination of my own and my oldest daughter's first year. She had to take on the rest of her education, her bachelor's and her master's, because as a single parent, there was no way I was going to be able to afford to pay for the education of myself or my other children. I am a GCC alum. I was here as a student in the 90s as a welfare recipient of 3 children under the age of 5. I was able to complete my education here at GCC without having to take out any loans. The combination of the Pell Grants and the state scholarships, I didn't apply for, nor was I awarded any private scholarships here at GCC at that point. Those funds covered my tuition fees and bookstore costs, with excess to help me cover the transportation costs I had. I didn't have childcare costs at that time because I did qualify for state benefits, and so my children were enrolled in Head Start programs, and I was otherwise eligible for voucher daycare. It's imperative that multiple agencies and departments work closely together with the community colleges, especially, but as well as the state colleges and universities, for us to leverage the resources we have to make it possible for women like me to now attend and succeed. We have many students who are attending, but success is difficult because of the stressors, because of the financial stressors. I wanted to give you a couple of examples of the costs of textbooks. Some have referenced the cost of textbooks. I am fortunate that we do have some private funding that I'm able to distribute to students who qualify, and oftentimes the majority of that funding is taken up with textbooks costs, either because their financial aid will not cover all of their costs of their textbooks, or because their financial aid is still pending when they start at GCC, and so they don't know what their award would be. So for example, a medical coding book, brand new, no used copies available in the bookstore, $315. A lab pack for a 1-credit lab section of a 4-credit course. The textbook was $279, the lab pack $300. That's for one 4-credit course. Another example, which is interesting, the student that I work with, who is a traditional age student, lives in Amherst, does not have her own transportation, so she rides her bike as much as possible. And when her bike is broken, she walks. And when she is able to, she will and can afford a PVTA bus pass and an FRTA bus pass. She will purchase those to get here in time for her classes that begun at 8. She came to see me a couple of weeks ago because she could not access an online homework program that costs $30. So $30 is not a lot of money, but she was not able to access her financial aid to get that code, nor was she able to pay for the code herself because it required her to have her own credit card or debit card, which she did not have. So we were able to make it work so she could have access to that. So that's just one example of one of the students, and that's a traditional age student. Each semester I talk with her about student loans, and she is adamant that she will not take out student loans. She will continue to walk if she has to. She will continue to use the books that are accessible in the library so she doesn't have to pay the cost of the textbooks from the bookstore. If she could, she would try to access more affordably priced books through Amazon or other online programs, but she's not able to do that, again, because she doesn't have a credit card or a debit card. I understand that you've heard some testimony already today about the cost of health insurance, the student health insurance. I want you to know, if you don't already, that the cost of the student health insurance for community college students has increased in 1 year by over $500. Last week, I met with a student who was referred to me by Mass Rehab, one of the agencies also funded by the state, to enable individuals with disabilities to receive the education and training they need to be self-sufficient. She was referred to me by Mass Rehab because her Mass Rehab bookstore voucher was pending. So the cost of her books were less than $150 that she was able to wrap her head around because she was able to access the resources she needed for her books. And eventually the voucher from Mass Rehab followed through. What she was most disappointed about and saddened about was that she and her advisor had worked together for her to increase her course load. She was taking 2 courses for the past 3 semesters, but increase her course load to 3 courses, so that would be 9 credits. And the state of Massachusetts says if you're enrolled in 9 credits or more, you have to purchase the health insurance from the school or waive it if you have comparable care. This student does have comparable care, in my opinion. She has Commonwealth care. That is comparable care. The student, when she learned that her bill would increase by $1,603, she worked with her Mass Rehab worker to cost out what her co-pays would be monthly, so over the course of the semester, what her prescription payments would be over the course of the semester, and she was not going to be able to afford that. Even if she could have afforded the $1,603 by taking out a loan, that would be the only way she would have been able to afford it. She was not going to be able to afford to pay her co-pays or her prescription drugs. She is now only taking 6 credits, so she has slowed down her course of studies, which to her is incredibly frustrating. I don't yet know what the impact would be on her individually or for some of our other students who I know have decreased their course load because of the cost of insurance. I do want to stick on this health insurance piece. I was talking with a colleague earlier, and she said, Rose, how many people can take out a loan to pay for their health insurance? I said, think about what you just said. How many people can take out a loan to pay for their health insurance? So many of us, I know as a state worker, I pay a biweekly premium, but students are faced with the $1,603 one time, and they're asked to pay that $1,603 or you're not eligible. Well, you're eligible to be enrolled in school, but you most likely won't be eligible to register for courses for the next semester because you'll have this outstanding debt. If we could work with the agency that does administer both the student health insurance and our Commonwealth Care and our Mass Health to really understand what the cost of health insurance is to students, but also to others in our community, but specifically to students, I think we would see more of our GCC students taking a full-time load so that they can manage to have their health care needs met as well as their academic and educational needs. Again, I thank you so much for your time and your consideration of all of the testimony here. I hope that there are some GCC students who are able to share their stories. And if you have any questions, please.
Thank you.
Ask.
Thank you for your testimony and for the work you do and the example you set for the students. And the issue of the healthcare, that's when Chris and I, we get called at office hours all the time, and it's very frustrating because we usually have to tell people, sorry, there's nothing we can do to help you. We don't like having to give that answer. Any questions?
Thank you for your testimony. What you've said accords with what I've heard from the president of the community college closest to my district, which is Bunker Hill Community College, who told me that the single greatest reason why students went down to a lower course load was health insurance. And this, of course, then feeds into the graduation rate image problem that the community colleges have, which makes them seem as if somehow their teaching or the preparedness of the students is the problem, when it's actually these extrinsic social factors in many cases that are forcing students to slow down their education, as you put it. So thank you for this data from this region.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we'll have Max Page.
Good afternoon. Max Page. I'm the treasurer of PHENOM, Public Higher Education Network of Massachusetts, and also a professor of architecture and history at UMass Amherst. So I'd like to first thank you for the funding for our campuses this year. PHENOM has been very good at criticism, and it's also very good at praise. And this was a really important thing that you all did by funding the campuses enough that we could freeze tuition and fees. As I'll get to, we all know it's not enough, but it was a major, major decision of great value, and it was a national marker. No other state did what you did this year, and so we're urging that you'll continue to fulfill the 50-50 plan in this coming year, and I'm optimistic about that. It was a great thing to do. Second, I just wanted to really be here, as some of my other faculty colleagues are here, specifically at a student debt hearing, because I want to be sure that we all know that faculty believe in that we need to fix the student debt problem. This is not a student issue. This is all of our issues. Not just because I might have children who end up at the public campuses, but because public faculty and staff believe in the mission of the public universities and community colleges and state universities. That's what I love about teaching at a public university, is people really have bought into the vision of a land grant, a public campus. UMass is celebrating, of course, its 150th anniversary this year, and my colleagues really believe in that mission, both in their research, their teaching, and their service. So we believe that we hate the fact that our students who once graduated, as you did, working some loans, graduating debt-free, and those very same students working, taking out loans, graduating with $28,000, $30,000, $50,000 debt. That's bad for society, it's bad for the individual. So third, I want to then urge you, given all that, to think big. And freezing tuition and fees was only a start, a very great start, and we thank you for that, but it was only a start. So let me just offer 3 ideas, some of which you've, I think, heard today already. The first is making 2 years of college free, and I mean community college or 2 years at a state university or at UMass. The notion that I send my child off to 12th grade, he goes to school, we just assume there's no tuition, the idea of tuition. I pay taxes, my child gets an education. The notion that the next year, which we all think is essential for a good life, is suddenly $12,000 at UMass, or much more if you add in room and board, that's not right. So, and this is not a radical UMass professor saying this, I'm just copying this from Deval Patrick, the governor, who offered this up as the plan, free community college, as the next step in what Massachusetts started with universal education. That was first just 6th grade, then it went to 10th, then it went to high school. The next step is at least 2 years of college. For those who move on and want to get a 4-year and are able to get a 4-year degree, we should adopt, as the students recently spoke about, something like the Pay It Forward plan that's being developed in Oregon. And I say Oregon to get your competitive juices flowing. Why is it that they are starting with that? Massachusetts should always be, I think, at the cutting edge, especially in education. And so the system they're setting up there needs to be obviously a close look at how it should work, but offering that up so that students are not saddled with an unmanageable amount of debt, I think is really something really to be considered. And then the third point is taxes. There has to be progressive taxes, or we can't do the things that you all want to do. And I know there was a big debate this last spring about it. And unfortunately, I would argue that the method that was taken is like a slingshot back on you all. Like, there's lots of people who are now angry about this tax, the gas tax, the computer tax, and they're regressive and they don't add up enough, so it's not the good way to go. So I urge you to become vocal advocates in the legislature in all your towns for progressive taxes. We have a very wealthy state, but we actually are right in the middle of the pack in terms of overall taxation. That has to be part of this discussion. So I'll just end with a great person from my field of architecture and planning, Daniel Burnham of Chicago. And he said, you may have heard this, make no little plans. They do not have the power to stir men and women's blood. So think big. This is Massachusetts, and I urge you to think beyond. We have to understand the small things that can make a difference on a day-to-day basis. We also should aim very high to really get the system, a national leading system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Barbara Broussard.
I've been waiting tables my whole life, and I had to come back to school. I have a daughter in college also. I initially took out a loan for about $13,000 with this subsidized, unsubsidized loan. And for some reason, I owe like 16 now. And I went right into the ELMS program. I did a human service degree here, which is phenomenal. So it was great that ELMS came here, and I'm able to pursue a career in social work, because I live in a hill town, and for me to make it to Smith or to UMass is just totally out of the question, because I couldn't afford the gas anyway. So that was a godsend that ELMS is here. But they said it was, an affordable program. So I hesitated. I looked into my job field with my degree, and I can't make more than $12 an hour with an associate's. So I signed my life away. They said it's $27,000. Turns out I need 3 more prerequisites through GCC, which would be another $3,000. So by the time I'm done with this, I'm probably going to be about $50,000 in debt. And like I said, I'm 50 years old, and it worries me that I'm not going to be able to pay it back with this field of social work the way I would, and the interest rates are probably, if I owe 50, it's going to just keep going up, and I'm never, ever going to be able to buy a house or buy a car or anything like that. So I just want to bring that to your attention. It's mostly the interest rates, too, that I think are really killing people out there. I was blown away that I didn't skip a semester, went right into ELMS and had that much interest in 2 years. I mean, it was crazy. I don't even have a credit card or anything. So I'm not, this is the first time I'm really digging in debt. And, I get second thoughts about it, about what I'm getting into. So I just wanted to share my story.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And as a representative of 12 of the hill towns, I really appreciate the challenges that aren't recognized in probably 75% of the state that exist only in these little towns. Any comments, questions?
Just that we will be taking up legislation, or perhaps there's legislation pending having to do with social workers and the
I heard
debt.
that, and I think that would be great. Otherwise, my other choice is just to keep going to school and getting PhDs and doctorates, and they could bury me with a great obituary that says I was so educated but never worked.
But you never had to pay back your loans.
Having to pay back these debts. So I just keep going to school so I don't have to pay them back. I mean, that's actually going through my head. So,
I actually tried that, but it caught up with me eventually.
But good luck.
Okay, thank you very much.
One more.
One more, please.
Barbara?
Oh, we have another question.
I'm sorry. I'm just curious what kind of advice or counseling you got at the outset about the debt that you were taking on and the earnings that you could expect to make. Was there any office or center or stop along the way when you enrolled to talk about what these trade-offs might be?
There was, but I knew that I wanted to get back to school, and I came up here to start a new life after leaving an abusive marriage in New Jersey after 23 years of being a housewife and raising my kids and coming up here with no support and just enrolling in school. And I mean, I was aware of it, but I thought like a 2-year degree, it'd get me out of the restaurant gigs and stuff I've been doing. I really wanted something that would have maybe a pension or, you know, I'm starting to think like that. And yeah, but I didn't realize how much it multiplies. I had an idea, but not like this. It just has blown me away, and it scares me.
So higher education's an act of hope, and the price tag is
it's
not
like,
in
is it weighing itself out? You know, I could work in a VFW with a hairnet and, you know, till I'm 65 serving old men, but I don't want to do that. I want to, you know, have a career. So that was my dilemma, and I just kind of dove into it.
I
But
hope you
now
get
I'm-
to do that. I hope you get that career.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Michael Lewis.
Good afternoon. I'm a little late, but classroom work comes first. My name is Michael Lewis. I am 54 years old. I am a former Marine, 2 tours back in the late 70s, early 80s. This whole committee is about, this hearing is about student loans and debt. Out of the 7 semesters I've spent here, which I just graduated this fall, 5 of those I couldn't afford my books. During those 3 years I was here, at one time I worked 5 jobs at once to try and make ends meet, and I still couldn't afford my books. If I didn't happen to be part of the VetNet, I was one of the co-founders, and happened to get into the VA, which I did not know I could get into, I would not have been able to afford to come to school because I could not afford the insurance. Thankfully, through avenues and wonderful people at GCC, I was able to, those 5 semesters, get my books. There are so many people younger than me who did not have that access, who end up not going to school. If I could tell you the amount of people who go to the library every day to check out one book, you know, 10, 15, 20, 25 students for one book because they can't afford to buy the book, or print out copies of the pages out of the book. And what a nightmare it is logistically for them just to try and get their classwork and their homework done. Like Barbara, if I really want to make a good living, I am also in the Elms College Accelerated Social Work Program. It being here at GCC and the collaboration going on between Elms College and GCC and other colleges around the state, without that, I would not be able to attend Elms College. I could not afford the gas. I drive a 30-year-old vehicle that eats a lot of gas. If I want to make a decent living, as I was starting to say, I would have to get a master's, basically, in social work. I'm doing this program because it fits what I do. As Paul knows, I've worked most of every job that I've had lately, especially here, and my church services and things like that has been about helping people. But in order to make a living doing that, I would have to get a master's degree. A traditional master's degree, by the time I was done, I would be 56 or 57 years old, between $55,000 and $70,000 worth of debt, with the exponential interest amounting on top of that. So in order to be able to afford a decent living, I would have to get the master's, but at the same time, to get the master's, I would put myself in debt probably for the rest of my working life. I think what I really would like to ask is, I know that and feel honored and privileged that you come here and listen to us talk to you. But what is the next steps? What do you hope to do with this information? As Paul and I have had conversations, I am a doer. Talking is nice, but doing is what's important. And there's people who are coming behind me or who are now, of course, in college, who need answers and need help and need direction and need hope. Going to school, as you said, it's a big hope. It is, you're really hanging yourself out there. So I would like to ask the committee the question, what's the next steps? What are you all going to do or try to do or with all of this information, this testimony that people are laying themselves open publicly to you? And thank you for allowing me to speak to this.
First, thank you for your service.
Thank you kindly.
Your service to the community and your country, your friendship, and your leadership here on campus. It's been outstanding.
That.
It's been a pleasure to know you. These hearings are designed to show the urgency, to make sure everyone's having a chance to get out their thoughts and their ideas and their stories, and in hopes that this will show the urgency of the problem to our colleagues down in the State House. Our plan is to take what we learned from these hearings and add it to things we've already been working on, and to come up with new solutions, including savings, increased knowledge, affordability, things we've already been working on in the last budget. And we plan to have some kind of a recommendation, maybe some bills, coming out by next March. And then we'll have a sprint until the end of the legislative session at the end of July. Hopefully we'll be able to get something in motion, and hopefully we'll get some real results over the next year. And everyone on this committee and all of our colleagues in the legislature have already taken a gigantic step with the 50-50 plan in the budget. And we're very proud of that. Because it isn't an easy decision to make, and there were tax matters involved, and I was proud to vote the way we did for such an investment. And if anyone else on this committee would like to add their thoughts, please do.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, and I also join my co-chair in thanking you for your service. You've raised a very important question, what next, or what can be done? In addition to what we're doing, and let me assure you, going to the various communities that we intend to go to over the next several weeks, hearing from you and from others is, in my view, one of the most important things this subcommittee can do, because we're hearing directly from the people who are dealing with this on the front lines, so that we can take that back to the committee as a whole, the Higher Ed Committee, and make specific recommendations. This is early in the process, but I suspect from what we've even heard today, we could have an executive session of this subcommittee and come up with some specific concrete ideas that we can bring back to our colleagues in the legislature. And so it's much more meaningful and potent to hear from you here in Greenfield and Holyoke. We were in Lowell last week. We will be traveling the state, but to know exactly, from the people on the front lines, what they're doing, so that we can hopefully take action that is not only going to, it's not just talk, because I think you're right, talk is cheap, but to really try and get some action here that we think could impact the lives of students now and for those to come.
For my part, I may be speaking out of turn because I am a total backbencher with no power whatsoever. But we've had the public hearing on the social worker loan forgiveness bill. I'd love to see us do that. I think that changing the rules with respect to the mandatory health insurance may not even take legislation. That, I think we will have to follow back to its source and find out where the rule is. That might be an administrative change. That sounds like it would be huge. Although I'm glad you found out that your eligibility for VA services was an option for satisfying that requirement. But for too many folks, it's not. And I think another important thing that we're going to have a chance to do as a legislature is in October, we've got a welfare reform bill coming up. I think it's going to be important that that be a bill which enables people to pursue higher education and does not, by virtue of making benefits more restricted or work requirements more onerous for students, make it even harder for folks to pursue a higher education. So that's an opportunity that will be coming our way, purely apart from the higher education world, but those two worlds really do intersect. And I appreciate hearing the testimony about how they do intersect. For Greenfield, it sounds like you could use a child care center, and I'd be curious to know what that would take, although you have great local representation that might be able to help with that.
I say President Pura has had several conversations, myself, Senator Rosenberg, Representative Kulik, and Andrews. We've been fighting for that, and we'll be glad to add you as a co-sponsor, Denise. Aaron, anything?
A lot of us came with ideas of what we thought were the issues, and I would say that for me, the healthcare one is new, and I think that is like low-hanging fruit that we should address. And I think figuring out something about the books. I don't know what our role really would be, but it seems, I know books were expensive when I was in school, and it's just something they've gotten out of control. So whether it means creating some sort of loan book program within the community colleges so that there's more access to books in the libraries for people who can't afford them. We heard earlier about the online book services possibility, so I think that's another one of these issues that I'm not sure what our role is, but it seems like something we can definitely address. I love Phenom's big picture ideas. We'll definitely talk about those. I think those might need a little more time than just the next few months to get passed, but I think that those are the things that should be at the forefront of the conversation.
Paul, it's been a privilege.
Thank
you
as
very
always.
much, and thank you
you
for the work that you all are doing and for being here.
Thank you very much. Kia Burton McLaughlin.
Hi, my name is Kia Burton McLaughlin. I am a student here at GCC. I'm the GCC Student Senate President, amongst many other things. I'm 27 years old. I'm originally from Dorchester, Massachusetts. I originally moved out here in Greenfield in 2001 and graduated from Greenfield High School, and I returned back out here and I believe it was spring 2011-ish. I have two children. My son is 4 years old and my daughter is 2. I am a TAFDC welfare recipient. I will graduate from GCC with a liberal arts degree this spring, and I will also have a human services certificate. I took out my first loan, I believe, last year. I took out a loan to offset the costs of living. I do work study. I've done it, I believe, for about 3 semesters now. I get about $8 an hour, and my work study positions are usually 5 hours a week. It's nice that it doesn't interfere with my TAFDC benefits, but it's still a challenge to survive with TAFDC benefits and work study. I didn't write anything down, but I wanted to speak. I want a career that will help people. I want to work with youth. I'm glad to hear that there will be some sort of social work forgiveness loan type thing, because at times it's really deterring to me. Sometimes I feel like there's not enough support for what I want to do, and all I want to do is give back and help make this Commonwealth better and empower youth to pursue higher ed. I do want to say that as a welfare recipient, I am under all sorts of requirements and things I've got to make certain hours, I've got to do all these things to get my child care voucher, to keep my voucher, to do all sorts of things, and that alone is a stress. Loan debt on top of that is a stress. What kind of career path is another stress. And again, all I want to do is help people and help them realize that there's hope in furthering their higher education. I do have 2 children, so that's always on my mind. They love it here at GCC. I bring them up here as much as possible so that they know that college is not an option in my house. It will be, they're going. And my son is very happy with that. He would gladly love to skip over Head Start and come straight here now. But it is scary, and I just want to share that it's scary going into social work, wanting to help people and youth, knowing that I have my own debt, and someday I will have to carry their debt as well in a career that is meant to help people. So I know that there's all sorts of programs if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be an EMT and things like that, and if you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be able to pay off your loan debt and things like that. But the Commonwealth and the loan situation is really sending a message to people that want to help people that you might want to consider something else. And I don't think that should be the case. And I could say a whole bunch of other things, but I'll leave it as that.
You Facebook me later.
Yes, I will. I'll probably write a letter when I have some more time.
No, thank you so much, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for all the involvement you do on here on campus. Any
Thank you.
questions, comments? Please.
I just want to thank you because I feel that you're already helping people. And I think that when I see you and I hear your story, obviously I represent Holyoke, a lot of young women probably in the same situation as you are, and I think that just having you be a role model out there is going to be a very big impact. So keep up the good work, and best of luck.
Thank you.
I just want to add, everything you're doing now, with 2 kids, going to school, president of the student body, I mean, you are doing a huge amount. So congratulations on that, and you're really an outstanding leader and representative for this school, and
Thank you.
For the community as a whole. So, thanks for being here, and thank you for sticking around.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Elizabeth Cart.
My name's Elizabeth. I have a similar story to Kia's. I am 27 years old. I'm a human services major. I have 2 children, 2 and 6. I started here back in 2005 after I got my GED because I was homeschooled. And I had to take out loans from day one to offset my living. I didn't have children when I first started, so it was how I paid my bills. My mom is 3 classes short from a bachelor's degree in teaching, so and she's run out of financial aid, so she cannot return. And so she runs an after-school program. My dad is very sick, and so he's on Social Security, so I support myself and my 2 kids. When I leave GCC, I will be $23,000 in debt because I've had to take semesters off. I've had to take 2 credits a semester. I've had children in between. I tried 2 semesters to bring a nursing child to school every single day and somewhat succeeded, riding the bus from where I live. Going into the human services field, I'm also worried that, this is just my associates, and I have tried very hard to get into Smith. I am Vice President of Student Senate, President of STIRL, Students in Recovery and Their Allies. I do work study in the Advising Center as a peer advisor and a single mother of 2 kids. But I'm worried that with, the debt that I'm already in and the allotment that I am allowed to live off of every single month, that Smith is just financially not an option. And that I may have to choose to take the Elms College, and it's an awesome program, but, Smith has been a dream since I was, really little. So again, like Kia, I just feel like we're giving the wrong message to people who want to go out, and, I want to work with teen moms. I want to work with women who've been, abused. I want to give back to the resources that have been there, for me through my struggles and for me trying to get an education. And I'm just, terrified that I'm not going to be able to make enough to pay off my debt and to send, you know, my 2 very incredible boys through college so that, you know, they can become what they deserve to become. So.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we'll have Brian Arthurton.
I have a unique situation. Some people know I am here. I'm a fellow former prisoner here at Franklin County House of Corrections. I just got out in August. I've been at GCC prior to that incarceration for 2 years, and GCC's been great about trying to reach out to us. There's a lack of programming to get the other inmates to GCC. It's an extreme struggle just trying to get signed up to this college. You don't have the guidance. I already knew what I wanted to do, which is marketing. I was in a different direction here prior to. Unfortunately, even where I'm at now for marketing is supposed to transfer into UMass. Just today, I just filled out for student loan. Luckily, I have a home that was handed down to me. You have the expenses still, even though it's not rent. You still have oil. You still have electric. You have some subsidizes that will give you some free fuel. I'm on food stamps at this point. As a felon, it's difficult to get employment, okay? With respect to GCC, they've been awesome in helping me get what I have so far to help offset the cost of the education. Unfortunately, the bookstore doesn't have everything you need, so you have to pull out of your pocket until that money's released, which I won't see for a couple more weeks. But it's still not enough to cover the expenses that was for these classes that I'm taking. Separate from that, even though you're on food stamps, that only goes so far. Today I had only $4 in my pocket to get food. Okay. I'm trying to better myself. It's hard. You know, you're looking at a student that wants to change, but you guys, I know, are trying, but you have people that are in a low income status already. But when you have somebody that was making a good income, lost everything, whether it was my mistake or not, you lost that. Now you're starting all over. Now I'm automatically having to take out loans to live because subsidizing is not enough. One of the things I've heard, I'm originally from Southern California, and I know there's talks out there, and I was involved with a lot of volunteering and all that stuff. I've been here for 13 years now. And you hear about that pay it forward stuff. I've heard about the forgiveness stuff. The thing that I'm looking at, which would make more sense, because you can have a program for social workers and all these other great things, that's not what I'm doing. I'm looking at something that still works with volunteering, nonprofits, which I've done for all my life since I was 6 years old. You know, doing the Tournament of Roses parade. You know, that's a huge thing. I've learned a lot with that. That's why I'm in marketing, okay? And in order to get there, you gotta have help. The best help I can see is, even though I'm gonna have these debts, I've heard of talk about if you complete that degree, that at least a portion of your debt will be forgiven. It's something that's significant to help you, because I've already heard people in the last hour or so I've been sitting here talking about, I'm gonna have $50,000. I don't know where mine's at. I know it's gonna be up there as well, just like them. And I don't have a family yet. But regardless if I do or don't, you still have that debt. It's not right to be in your 50s or 60s and have an absorbent amount of debt. When this Commonwealth, I pay more property tax here in this town than I do in Downey, California, which is 9 miles southeast of Los Angeles, okay? That is absorbently different. Taxes are different there than they are here. And for us to try to eat here at the school is awesome. I can get a meal for $5, but it still doesn't offset what that student loan's gonna cost me. And I guess I can only get $5,100 because I'm only a 3/4 student. Why? Because being in the programs I'm at for food stamps, you're only allowed so much. I cannot be a full-time student because of the restrictions. If I was to do that, I cannot have my Mass Health. I'm a diabetic. okay? And in order for me to get my medications, it's taken me a month and a half to get my medications, number one, which is a different situation than what you guys are with, but you're still dealing with a person with a medical issue who I can't continue to get my meds if I was a full-time student, because it would have to come out of my pocket from the understanding that I've been given. That's not fair. I want to change my ways, be a better person, better myself, help my family, community, but without the proper things in place, it's like setting me up for failure. I'm not going to give up, because I do have support, which majority of people do not have. If I didn't have this house, I'd be on the street. But yet, you can be a full-time student, and there's no help for people that don't have what I have. And that's the biggest concern I have for students, regardless. And I know being the people that are in jail that do truly, truly say and want to be in this college, they can't because they don't have what I have. We can promote these programs at the colleges, at our local jails, but if you're not going to let them succeed at going to jail, they're going to be continuing to do what got them in jail in the first place, or worse. And I know of at least 2 cases here locally that that's exactly what happened. They wanted to get out, but couldn't find the way out. Now they're upstate. And that should be a major concern for any of you up there on the panel. You know, Mr. Pura has brought the program to the jail. There's still improvements that need to happen. There still needs to be programs where you can give, majority of these people don't have their GED. Luckily, there's a program trying to get going over there, but there's still a lot of red tape to get these guys just the basic education. Separate from that, get them some basic college. Get them a feel for college. That's where my biggest message is we gotta change people's ways of thinking. We're in a community that used to thrive. The biggest thing that's thriving right now is this community college. This is the only brightness in this town right now. It's continued to struggle for many years. I've listened to my grandparents complain about it nonstop. The Boston gets all the money. We need it here. Our roads are falling apart. You've driven it. You see the improvements that are finally happening. But we need to improve our communities. And I think that's what we need to do, is start with the education, get people into education, support them so they can succeed. Then, just like the president here was just talking, for student body, now she can give back, and it's paying it forward. You guys want us to pay? You want us to pay forward? You need to help us that, and that's what I ask.
Thank you, thank you. It certainly takes guts to tell the story you've told. So thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
That was the last person we had signed up. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything? Last chance. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much for your patience and your input. And thank you so much to my colleagues for traveling all the way out here to the Pioneer Valley and spending the entire day out here with us. We really appreciate it.
We don't mind. We know you do it all the time.
Thank you very much. This hearing is adjourned.